Hello people of YouTube, my name is Brad, this is my channel Adamant Orange, and this week in 3D metal model news. Nothing new with Fascinations or Metal Earth this week. Their website remains unchanged. However, we do have a couple of new models from Piececool. And before I continue, I do want to point out something that I occasionally forget. The Piececool models, when I talk about them showing up on their website, they're like the coming soon models. These aren't out yet, and I don't yet have a date of when they're coming, but two new models showing up from Piececool coming soon. They don't label theirs as coming soon on a separate tab or page like Metal Earth does, but when they show up at first, they are not available yet. We have Ride the Wind, aka the Windbreaker. There's the Chinese name and the English name, and Google translates the Chinese name into Ride the Wind. But the English name is apparently the Windbreaker. It is a really awesome looking black and gold, mostly sailing ship. It comes with if I'm reading this correctly, it comes with 11 sheets plus 5 accessories. Because it says the pieces is 11 centimeters by 21 centimeters by 11, which I think is the size of the sheets are 11 by 21 centimeters. There's 11 sheets, and there's 5 accessories on top of that. 709 pieces. The material is listed as brass. Finished model size 35 centimeters by 15.5 centimeters by 26 centimeters, so a decent size ship. 6 out of 7 stars, so a fairly difficult model it looks to be. And like I said before, it's black and gold and rather elaborate. It's a pretty interesting looking ship, and it also appears to come with a stand. The pictures show it, some of the pictures show it on a rather thick stand. I did download and look at the directions, and in the end of the directions it does show assembly of the stand, so that appears to come with it. The other model that they have listed is the Chinese translated name is Drunk Float, or the English name Phoenix Festooned Vehicle. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is another one of those festival or festive type like carts or floats, and apparently very Phoenix themed. I don't really know anything about it. If you know any details, feel free to leave it in the comments down below. Didn't want to ask anybody anything at 3 in the morning. But, you know, here we go. Number of metal pieces. It looks like 8 sheets on this one. The same 11 by 21 centimeters. Plus 202 accessories. Wow. So 641 pieces. Metal pieces. Plus the 202 accessories. That's a lot of parts. Also listed as material as brass. Finished size of 19 by 15.3 by 18 centimeters. So another sizable model. And this one is listed as 5 out of 7 stars. Still fairly difficult. Not quite as difficult as the ship, but pretty challenging and up there. Again, these are models that have just shown up in the past couple of days. They're not out for sale yet, but will be coming soon. And right now I don't have a expected date, and even if I did, depending on where you live, it may take a time for it to show up on any stores. Now, moving on from that, my own personal research, looking around my usual sites, I didn't see anything new. However, I do want to talk about a comment that was left by Max Musterman. In my last video, someone else, or a couple of videos ago, someone else mentioned some stuff that I missed, and I talked about it on last video, because I did take a vacation there and a bunch of things happened. And, you know, I mentioned if there's anything else I've missed, let me know in the comments. And Max Musterman did comment that he had found a new Iron Star Temple of Heaven model. And no, Max, it isn't rude to point out stuff. I'm only human. I miss stuff. There's a lot of duplicate stuff out there, and even I get confused. It's hard for me to keep track who's got what and whether or not I've talked about it before. And I can sometimes search my own notes, but I still don't even come up with anything. But so we've got a Temple of Heaven model from Microworld. No, excuse me. From Iron Star. Apparently Microworld and Piececool have made this model. Now Iron Star has, and it appears to be smaller than the other two. So by that link, it's found on the MMZ model store, which apparently I need to pay more attention to. MMZ I've not looked that deeply into. I find MMZ's web or store on AliExpress confusing because they tend to overwrite the actual brand names of the model with their name, which is possibly why I missed this one, to combine that with taking some time off. But Iron Star Temple of Heaven. It's a stainless steel material. There's not a lot of detail, just the assemble size is 11 by 11 by 7.5. But that is one that I have apparently missed, and I apologize for that. Thank you, Max, for pointing that out. And Max also mentioned, I'm not sure if the other comment meant these with Lakeside Iron Star models, but I also saw this on AliExpress, and there's a link to a set of 4 different models which can be put together. Iron Star seems to be quite prolific, releasing many new models. And I agree, Iron Star really is going far out there and putting out a lot of new stuff, and a lot of interesting new stuff, which people seem to be quite interested in, including me. This I had to look a little bit more into. It is listed on, I think, also MMZ. I think I may have found it one other place, but MMZ has this Iron Star Ancient Chinese Architecture Kits. And it's several kits that come together. And if you go through the listing, you can see a little bit of information about each one. The naming is a little bit confusing because translating some of them, I got 2 different names. I probably shouldn't even try to pronounce these. Yingzum Pavilion / Yongjin Pavilion Bridge is one of them. It's also the secondary name translated as Fengu Shengjin Yingzum Pavilion Young. It's a bunch of names. It's a bunch of names. I'm sorry. I'm going to mess that up if I try to pronounce it. Here's a picture of it. Its finished size is 16.2 by 12.7 by 7.1. Apparently a mix of stainless steel and brass. Model number is J42212 for this particular model. Not a lot of detail on it. Then we also have the Yaichen Temple, which has a finished size of 16.1 by 11.5 by 9.2 centimeters. Also, according to the information I found, is a mix of stainless steel and brass. This one's model J62215. And then we have the Ruiting Pavilion or Jinghui Building or Fenghu Shengjin. I need to stop. We'll just go with Ruiting Pavilion Jinghui Building. Probably doing that wrong. I apologize. Finished size 17.5 by 13.5 by 8 centimeters. People are probably laughing at me now. Stainless steel and brass also. Model number J62214. And the last of the 4 models, the Ningxian Pavilion Jade Building. Finished size of 17.5 by 13.5 by 8 centimeters. Stainless steel and brass. This model is J62213. And apparently you can buy or get all of these models separately, build them, and then they kind of come together into one larger, neat looking model. And I think that's really cool. I haven't gotten into any of the sets which you build different pieces and put them together, but I think the concept is really cool, especially if you have the room to set up that sort of diorama. I do not really. I've got a bunch of stuff crammed on these shelves back here, and there's more that's not even on these shelves. There's more than you can see on down here behind me. There's more up top you can't see. A lot of models, and really cramped for space. I'd love to do some of those type models. Like there was an amusement park one with several different rides. You can kind of put them all together. I'd love to do stuff like that. I don't have the room for it right now. But I do like the idea and the concept of having different pieces that come together into one. I'd love to see more of that. I'd love to see Metal Earth do stuff like that. If you've even made the suggestion of, why don't you sell things in pieces so you can build as much of it as you want, or just get the stuff you're interested in. It comes together in a cityscape or collection or diorama. I like the idea. It's pretty cool. But thank you, Max Musterman, for pointing those 2 out. I absolutely did miss those, so thank you. Still trying to play catch up, and it is easy to miss. For the past 6 months to a year, there have been so many things that Piececool put it out, and MU put it out, and then Microworld put it out, and now Iron Star is putting it out. So you've got sometimes 3 or 4 different brands putting out the same model, and it really gets confusing which one I've actually talked about it and which ones I haven't. They're doing that with a lot of architectural models. They do that sometimes with ships. It's difficult to keep up. And there's a lot of knockoff stuff out there that I have to weed through that I don't talk about. A lot of copycat stuff, which makes it even more confusing. And I sound like I'm making excuses here, but this is just the reality of it. MMZ is one of those stores where they kind of they make it, the titles of everything makes it look like they've made all the models. He's just the MMZ model, MMZ something something palace, but you look deeper into it, you can find the Piececool name on one of the pictures, or you find the Microworld name or MU logo or something like that. And they're not, maybe not intentionally trying to cover it up. It's just the way they present it can be confusing. There's a couple of different stores that do that. But again, Max, thanks you for pointing that out. I absolutely missed it. And I spent some time early this morning trying to figure out some of the models that I was finding, because it has been 2 or 3 weeks, or a couple of weeks that I was off there. And then here I had another little mini vacation with my surgery, which went well, by the way. And just trying to figure out where I left off and what I've talked about. There were some ships that I'm like, I think I talked about that, did I? And that looks like that ship, and yeah, I'm pretty sure I have. But if I've missed something, feel free to share it with me. It's not rude. Don't be embarrassed. I appreciate it, because there is stuff that I miss. And it's honestly getting harder and harder to tell what I've talked about and what I've not. But I mentioned the surgery. I did have a small surgery this past week. I took most of the week off from work, which was a nice little vacation. The surgery wasn't that big a deal. I had a peritoneal dialysis catheter that I wasn't using because I was on the PD dialysis, and my kidneys have improved. They're not all better, but they're doing well enough that I don't need dialysis, and haven't since March of last year. And I shortly after they did the test and stopped me on realized I didn't need it, and I stopped doing dialysis, and I had an appointment like later that month, the next month, with a renal doctor, and he's like, yeah, let's go ahead and get this tube out, and he's referred me to a surgeon, but nothing ever came of it. Nothing ever, but months went by before I finally had another like 4 to 6 month checkup with the nephrologist. I think it was 4 months. And he's like, oh yeah, we should get that taken out. I mean, you said that already, but nothing ever came of it. Pandemic, I guess. Everybody says, well, it's the pandemic. And so he referred me again, and a month or two later, I finally got a call and to schedule it, and they wanted to schedule it right in the middle of our kind of Thanksgiving, Christmas surge, where everybody's coronavirus cases were growing up, including the hospital in which I work. And I'm like, yeah, there's no way I want to be in the hospital right now. It's bad enough I work there. I don't want to be a patient. At least as fully conscious employee, I can protect myself. As a patient, I'm at the mercy of whether or not my caregiver is actually going to wear their mask properly. And there were some possible issues with staff not always social distancing and masking as they should, because people are going to be people. But things have gotten a little better. Gotten the COVID vaccine myself, both shots, so I should have some protection, and it's needed to come out, so I went ahead and rescheduled it and got that taken care of, and I'm glad for it. Just a few small incisions. They took the thing out. I spent more time waiting for a room in the hospital to go through the process of getting out than I did actually, recovering. I sat in the PACU, post-anesthesia care unit, for quite a while, chit-chatting with the nurse before they finally got me a room. So apparently it was a busy day, and sat in the room for an hour. They just wanted to take my blood pressure and make sure I could pee, and then they sent me home. But anyway, as far as surgeries goes, that one was a fairly easy one. My only issues was a couple of the wounds tried to reopen a little bit and dribble. So had to be careful and take care of that. But I'm feeling good and a little bit tender, but much better, and no longer have this catheter hanging out of my stomach that I have to tuck in somewhere, or wearing a belt or hang around my neck or whatever, because it was a 3 or 4 foot tube that was hanging out. I don't have to worry about that anymore, and going back to work tonight, so moving on. I think I talked about that more than I intended to. I've already talked about one comment that someone put on the last video. There is another comment that popped up in the last week that I did kind of make a note of and want to mention. Martha Becker commented, I don't remember what video they commented on, why don't they make Batman and Robin figures? And I did respond to that comment, something along the lines of they sort of did. Metal Earth sort of made a Batman figure, but it was part of the Legends lineup, which I don't know, you can't quite see, you can see the bottom of it. I have several of the Legends models, I think including Batman over there. And the Legends lineup just didn't do as well as expected. And I did talk with someone a little, very, very briefly about what happened there. And the impression that I got with the Legends, I think I may have mentioned this before, but, you know, like any company, they market it to try and see how it's going to sell. But they're not always marketing directly to the consumer. They're marketing to the stores that are going to carry it. And the stores were very interested in the Legends model. And while the end consumer is important, it doesn't matter if you don't have stores to carry your product. You know, Metal Earth is the wholesaler. And everyone seemed very interested in those models, and so that's what they went with, but then they didn't sell because the people were not interested in them, and it was kind of a bust. And it's unfortunate that it worked that way, but they did have a Batman. If they'd been successful, they probably would have included a Robin at some point, I would think. But that didn't work out. Legends models were somewhat quickly discontinued, and that's probably thrown things up in the air. I know this is speculation. There's some information that I got as far as what happened with them and as far as why they didn't come out with anything further. Is my speculation that probably damaged that concept because Legends didn't do well and Metal Earth is regrouping, because they are in reality a small company. At least the Metal Earth branch here in the U.S. is a small company, and you know they can't afford to take so much of a loss. But I wouldn't say that the possibility of a Batman and Robin figure are completely out of the question. Not confirming anything, this is speculation. I think the other question is which version would they do, because there's a lot of different versions. There's cartoon versions, there's live action versions, which more or less I think they'd probably go with a live action version, but which one? Because the Batman movies, the Batman and Robin was redesigned several times in the movies to the point of ridiculousness in the 90s versions. I enjoyed most of the movies, but yeah, looking back, it was a bit ridiculous. I mean, I enjoyed the Adventures, or excuse me, the Masters of the Universe movie back in the 80s when it first came out, but looking back, that was pretty damn silly. Anyway, I don't think it's out of the question. It's probably something that Metal Earth is considering, and right now, if that's something, what I would say is if that's something you're interested in seeing, if you're interested in seeing a Batman and Robin figure, which I'm assuming they were referring, Martha was referring to something like Iron Man or the Star Wars models that we have now, like Boba Fett and Stormtrooper, something along those lines, or Deadpool, which I just recently built and the videos are still coming out for. Assuming they're referring to that, if you'd like to see a figure, full figure Batman and Robin like that, let Metal Earth know. Let me know. Put it in the comments down below. Go to the Metal Earth subreddit. There's usually a post up top of models you'd like to see. Say it in there. Email Metal Earth. Call Metal Earth. Let people know. Make it heard, because that has a lot to do if there's enough interest with getting them to push something through and go ahead and design something and make it. Because even though I said what I said about marketing to the consumers, that's only part of the picture, and this was a brand new product line. But if enough, or they were marketing to the wholesalers or resellers and not the consumers, they are still marketing consumers, and if enough people gauge an interest, they'll push the model through. And I would imagine something like a Batman and Robin full-size figure would be easy to sell to the resellers if it was available. But yeah, definitely let Metal Earth know. Make a buzz about it, and that's something they can push through. If there's something that generates a lot of interest, make a buzz about it. Leave it on comments. Email Metal Earth. Let them know there's something you'd like to see, because they want to know. They want to know what direction to head into. I can't blame them. I think that's enough of me rambling for this week, and that about wraps it up for new models. I have noticed a couple more stores on AliExpress just kind of going quiet. The closer we get to February, I think the more things on AliExpress and things from China are going to quiet down, because like I mentioned, I believe last week, coming up on the Chinese New Year, where a lot of stores close down, people take breaks and vacation, and they celebrate their new year and then get back to work. So we are coming to a point where there's going to be a quiet time. Hopefully that won't impact the upcoming Mandalorian models that we're still waiting on, because we've only got the child and we're still waiting for the rest of them. The spoiler alert, if you're into the Mandalorian, stop now if you haven't finished the second season. We've gotten the really cool ship and lost the really cool ship and still waiting for the model, so kind of funny right there. Anytime news comes out though, and you'll certainly hear it from me in my weekly video, and I'm going to leave it at that. I'm rambling now. Thank you for watching. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for continuing to support this channel. And thank you everyone who comments, who points out stuff that I miss and mistakes that I made. I'm only human, and I'm not ashamed to admit, oops, I goofed up. Honestly, it's part of why I make the build videos I do, because I mess it up so you don't have to. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep on keeping on.